probably noticed very few Democrats were celebrating a quote-unquote win after the vote to reopen the government last night. It could be they're just trying to stay out of the crossfire. And the vote in the House last night passed with only about 40% of the Republican members signing on. Still, it's more than a lot of people thought even last week. Members seeming to have forgotten Ronald Reagan's so-called 11th commandment that thou shalt not speak ill of other Republicans.
It was a fool's errand. We were not going to defund Obamacare. That's why we had an election in 2012. That's part of what that was all about. We Republicans have a hole that we've got to come out of, and obviously we're going to have to do a lot of work.
Now, that anger from the center of the party met by even more from its far right.
Senate Republicans were attacking House Republicans in every venue from every front. You know, it should have been the Senate Republicans that rode like the cavalry to support the courageous stand House Republicans were taking. Instead, they became the Air Force bombing our own troops.
Other Republican opinion makers, they were in full meltdown.
I was pondering if I can ever remember a greater political disaster in my lifetime, if I can ever remember a time when a political party just made a decision not to exist.
Now, still others, they were calling for scalps.
All this crap about the law of the land. The law of the land is the Constitution. John Boehner was never going to fight hard on Obamacare. That's why you heard throughout much of the conservative media, almost like a bunch of parrots, the same thing. We should not fight Obamacare.
Though, all that said, you would have thought that John Boehner would be looking for other employment today if you listen to those guys. Didn't seem so much here. Few were calling for a coup on the speaker.
Absolutely no talk of anything along those lines. No talk at all.
I've actually been really proud of Speaker Boehner the last 2.5 weeks. I don't think that he should be ashamed of anything that he has done. I'm more upset with my Republican conference.
So, with all that, we asked the question, what will the GOP do about the Tea Party here? And for more on that, let's bring on our next guest, Kirsten Kukowski. She is the press secretary for the Republican National Committee. She's kind enough to join us out of our nation's capital. Thank you so much for a couple. I appreciate it.
Of course, no problem.
Well, we just played a lot of back and forth from national Republicans and also leading conservative voices. A GOP civil war, many are saying here. To that end, if there have been any lessons learned after, as even Speaker Boehner says, what was a defeat last night, pure and simple, what were those lessons that came out of it?
Look, I think that, what Speaker Boehner has said, what a lot of Republicans have said, is that we fought our hardest, and it could have gone a little bit better. We didn't, maybe come out on top yesterday. But guess what? What we did accomplish was we brought a lot of issues that American people, if you look at the polling, actually really, really care about. Everything from the debt to our nation's penchant for overspending to their extreme dislike of Obamacare. As a party, we brought all of those issues to the forefront.
But your boss, Mr. Priebus, immediately after the 2012 elections, he had that postmortem where he said, everybody, let's look at the real difficult realities here. We have to expand our base. We have to bring more people into the tent. And by every single person's estimation, the last 2 weeks, Republican strategy drove more people out. And I know that you talk about the polls here, but they were unanimous here that the idea of shutting down the government and screwing around with the debt limit was not popular among the American public. Now, I bring this up because I spoke to a few Republicans, whether it's Barton out of Texas or you have Yoho out of Florida. These guys actually think going over the debt limit would have been good for America. My point is, will there be any unanimity here? Forget they don't like Obamacare, but unanimity as to how far they're willing to go again, because they're going to have the same fight in January and February. Are Republicans on the same page that they're not going to threaten to even go over the cliff, let alone get to the edge?
Look, like I said before, you may be right. We do not agree on tactically how we need to get to our end game. But like I said before, on issues, whether it be spending, whether it be getting our debt under control, whether it be Obamacare, our party is 100% in lockstep on those issues. And frankly, when you look at the polls, so are Americans. So that is how our party moves forward.
But this is important. You talked about the message, but the messengers are as equally important as to who delivers that message. And I'll tell you right now, we had an election last night in New Jersey. We have a bunch of elections, I can tell you, even on the county-wide levels around our region. And the Tea Party label is being used as a hammer. And some of the Republicans, they don't want to even be associated with the label, but they're put on defense by it. We're seeing races play out in Virginia and everything. Part of your job, part of the RNC's job, is to get more Republicans elected. My question is, how do you guys navigate the Tea Party label when in every national poll here it doesn't carry a good connotation? Does the GOP wrap its arms around and embrace the Tea Party, or do you guys start to separate yourselves from them?
Well, I have to laugh. This Tea Party label that you guys like to continue to talk about when you're labeling a Republican, I don't see you guys talking about Union Democrats. You know, I think I would caution you guys to not overdo it on that. We grow the party by being a big tent party, by having people that you guys that we identify with as conservative principles. We want everybody who identifies as a conservative in our party. That's how we grow our party. So when you ask me, how do we grow? Who are the messengers that we need to rely on as a party? I'm pretty happy with the conversations that we're having. If you look at our presidential field for 2016, I'm very, very happy about those people who are out there every single day in the news having conversations about issues that Americans want us to tackle.
Okay, wait a second though. Your job is messaging and optics. Were you happy? Come on now, put the truth meter on. Were you happy last weekend where with the backdrop of Confederate flags and Larry Klayman, you have Senator Cruz and Senator Lee talking about leading out the president in handcuffs, and also, I mean, you really like the idea of a Confederate flags waving behind him and not a word of condemnation that they didn't stand by that objects, let alone the language there? Their representative, he's a good presidential candidate. Ted Cruz, after he attacked his fellow Republican senators yesterday on the floor of the Senate?
Look, obviously, and I don't, you saying there was no condemnation for wild rhetoric, extreme rhetoric, is false. There has been, there is a line, and yes, we are watching that, and we do not want anybody to go over that line. So I want to make sure to make that clear. I don't know if Ted Cruz is running for president, but what I'm saying is we have a whole lot of Republicans who are out there leading.
Ms. Kukowski, you are very good at what you do. I'll give you that much, and I certainly appreciate a few minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. The point of the RNC, she did her job wonderfully. She had a bad hand to play here, but it's to win elections, right? I just don't get how you turn off the cameras and you sit in front of the people at the RNC and say, what the hell do we do? You got Ted Cruz's and the Rand Pauls. You can't win nationally with this. How does the Republican Party solve that problem? They love the idea of the Tea Party, 4 or 6 years ago. Yeah. But what has it brought along with them?
You need great candidates. I mean, you need great candidates in areas that are not Republican areas. What you're seeing now in the country, both on the Democratic side and the Republican side, is the effect of all the gerrymandering over the last 50 years.
Let's take it even this way, Bill. We saw in New York State, maybe I was the only one who believed that Gillibrand was beatable, right? There are better candidates, but you can't make it through a primary even in New York State to be statewide unless you're really conservative or have Bloomberg's money. I mean, that's, I think, telling, and I think that holds back a party when there's winnable races.
But you can be conservative. You can be conservative and win and be hugely popular.
But you almost got to be Chris Christie, and how many of those are there?
But that's what I'm saying. Look at Chris Christie. I mean, here is a pro-life Republican. He's a conservative by any measure, but Christie's personality comes across as reasonable. His popularity
we
is
can't find
tremendous.
another authentic guy like him, or at least comes off that way of either party, other than that guy.
I mean, that's the model for winning in blue. I have to remember who's blue and who's red sometimes. In blue states, I mean, that's the model. I mean, Republicans can win in those states, but there are few candidates like that.
There's also, it strikes me, there's no grown-up candidate out there telling his Tea Party or her Tea Party voters out there, no, this
Well,
isn't
John
how,
McCain
this isn't
tried
how
that,
you
and
win.
look what they did to him. I mean,
Well, but he didn't try that in 08. He tried to be everything to everybody. He's starting to get back to that now. He's finally starting to be the maverick that he was back in, in the 90s.
Right.
But it's nobody wants to be able to tell them, I understand what you're saying and I feel your anger, but this isn't helping any. I know how to do this.
I
Let
think
me
it's
show
funny.
you.
Lindsey Graham's in the same boat as McCain. I think Lindsey Graham's been walking on eggshells for the last few years, but I think he's finally said, wait a second, I can actually show South Carolina voters, look what they did. Okay, look what they did with the shutdown. Look what they did with X, Y, and Z. And he could give them tangible examples to say, listen, you don't have to like Democrats. I don't like them either. You don't have to like Obamacare. I don't like him either. But the way they're going, or the guy that you're going to run up against me in the primary, look what he would do. He would have put you out of work. He would have done X, Y, and Z.
Sarah Palin specifically calling out South Carolina last night, along with Tennessee and Kentucky, as like, this is where we need to remind people and keep their feet to the fire. She wants to go after McConnell. She wants to go after Lindsey Graham.
Stop living in
she wants to
fear
go after
of
Lamar
Sarah
Alexander.
Palin, right?
Yeah.
Stop living in fear of Sarah Palin.
The Tea Party feels that, they wanted to go all the way with it. That's their point. They understood the ramifications of what could happen.
I'm not sure. You really think so?
Oh, absolutely. I think they're saying it's worth it, and they're upset that other people ran for the hills, that if they stuck with it, even with the negative consequences, they would finally get the microphone to talk about the dead issues.
They will destroy your village in order to save it.
Yes. All right, up next, that split in the GOP, we're going to put it in local context, at least if the campaigns currently in play have anything to say about it. For example, this ad about the county exec in Westchester is today about the Tea Party. That's what they're lining him up with. Whether it works or not, that's the question. But this is the game plan the Democrats are trying to go after Republicans. Fair or not, we'll get into that after this.